parents at their best made $40,000 a year growing up. Yeah. A year.
Yeah.
I was making that a show. How I feel about it is what's mine is theirs, what's theirs is mine.
Right.
And I would do it again. I would give up and sacrifice 20 more years of my life working in this industry so that I could provide and we could have the business we had today.
KeKe, you know, it's not normal that a child is the provider for the family. Normally it's vice versa. Parents, father, mother, sometimes the father works.
Can I have a tissue?
But as a child, you are the provider of the family.
Yes.
Did you realize what was on KeKe's shoulder?
Yes, I did. And I wore it like this Marc Jacobs runway. I wore it like armor. I would do it again for my family.
Raise your hand if this resonated with you. Raise your hand if this hit you deeply, right? How many eldest daughters feel this way? Again, I'm not saying this is exclusive to eldest daughters, but I know that this is uniquely, if we did a survey, if we did an impromptu questionnaire of eldest daughters as opposed to other daughters or other children in the birth order, I'd be willing to bet my entire career that eldest daughters will disproportionately identify with this moniker. Hello and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. My name is Raven, therapist, thought leader, and theologian. And I am always so happy to have you here with me today. If you're new here, welcome. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. We call ourselves the Critical Thinkers over here in the Bastion of Critical Thinking. And we do that because what we do in this channel or over here in these neck of the woods is we critique and reform things within faith, society, and culture. And we offer our ways to critique it so that we can offer reform, because we never want to critique without offering a hand. And so with that in mind, today will be no different. If you're interested in that kind of content, please feel free to stick around, subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you need to do to make sure that we can grow the conversations that we have here and also build this family that I'm trying to create here. Anyway, so with that in mind, let's hop into today's video. So today I'm going to be talking about the viral clip of KeKe Palmer. Well, I'm going to be using that as a referencing point for the conversation that I want to, the broader conversation that I want to have, which is about eldest daughter syndrome and being the eldest daughter, the eldest child, because men will also be able to find themselves in this conversation as well. However, I know that it manifests really uniquely and differently in women. And so that's why I'm going to be putting up fine point on the women, the female aspect of this eldest child syndrome, because it really manifests in unique ways with women. But in addition to that, I'm also doing it and pointing out women because KeKe Palmer, in this interview with Shannon Sharpe that she did, she talked a great deal about the responsibilities that she has as the daughter, even though I don't believe she's the eldest. So that puts a whole different spin on it. Nevertheless, I still wanted to use this as a point of reference because I think it spoke to so much of what I hear eldest daughters talk about. One, because I'm an eldest daughter relatively in my family dynamic. And also in my experience as a therapist, the bulk of women that I see are so often eldest daughter. And I don't think that's coincidental. I don't think that's by accident. And I think it's because eldest daughters typically take on a role of responsibility that they often didn't mean to. It just kind of, they were thrust into it. And then as a result of that, so much of their identity is stricken to that role. And they find themselves struggling with depression and anxiety in various different ways than other people or other people who fall in the different birth orders because of that unique position that they fall in and the amount of responsibility that they were almost thrust into as a result of just, birth order, right? And so it's a bit more complex, which we'll get into a second, but I wanted to highlight it because I personally have struggled with some of these things, and I'm like, oh, I have some personal feelings that I think I could share and be helpful with. And also as a therapist and a person who's read avidly on this topic and the topic of birth order in general, I really have some thoughts that I think can be very useful as well. So I'll be in my therapist's bag today, just a forewarning. And yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, stick around and let's get started.
For community. And I think that is the thing, you know, life is a lonely place.
It is.
And when you have your family, and if you're the one, then you're the one. That's it. That's the way it was. And now, you know, my sister could go to FAMU and she had to worry about nothing.
Can we just talk about this clip? First of all, raise your hand if this resonated with you. Raise your hand if this hit you deeply, right? How many eldest daughters feel this way? And I'm not saying this is exclusive to eldest daughters, but I know that this is uniquely, if we did a survey, if we did an impromptu questionnaire of eldest daughters as opposed to other daughters or other children in the birth order, I'd be willing to bet my entire career that eldest daughters will disproportionately identify with this moniker. This is hard. This is really, really hard stuff. And it's hard because in one facet of yourself, you feel this automatic, innate, this is generally speaking, obviously all eldest daughters don't fall within this, but generally speaking, eldest daughters typically fall naturally into this role of being the protector, being the person who wants to keep everyone together, being the person who wants to make sure that all of the other siblings and mom and dad, or whatever the parental framework that you grew up in, everybody is good. Everybody is taken care of. And they often feel like it's their responsibility to ensure everybody else's well-being. It's not that was explicitly said to them, although sometimes in some situations it was. But whether or not it was, it doesn't really often matter most times, because they feel this innately. And in case you're unfamiliar, the reason why they feel it innately is because if you're the oldest, you're the one that's closest to parentals, whatever those parental figures are. Typically, if we're talking about in a general nuclear household, mom and dad, you're the person who's closest to mom. And so your immediate or your frame of reference for how to be and how to engage is a mother figure, a figure that takes care, feeds, nurture, make sure everybody is good. That's your first point of reference. And not only does that influence how you show up, because again, in your formative years, you're the first person, this is the first person that you're seeing. But in addition to that, because you're the first, you're typically the one who mom and dad have a lot of protection over and are really particular over, because you're their first child, you're their first experience, or you're their first, well, this is actually gets a little nuanced, because if you're the first girl, but not necessarily the first child, like, so perhaps the first child was a boy, it gets a little bit nuanced, but let's go for this for now. If you're the first girl and you're the first child, you're the person that sets the example for mom and for other kids. You're their first experience with a child, or if you're the oldest girl, you're the first experience with a baby girl. So all of your parents' preconceived thoughts about what women should be like and how girls should be raised, and also all of our social and cultural biases that we have about women and what we require of them are all coming into play when you're looking at this little baby girl that you're raising to be a woman, right? And so all of these preconceived biases, preconceived judgments, preconceived perceptions about women and girlhood are being thrust onto you. And because you're the first one, it's like in double time, because you're the one space where they're preoccupying all of their attention, all of their emotion, all of their efforts. They want to do this well, right? That's how and why you can grow up, or a lot of eldest daughters grow up and feel this unintended, unasked for, unwarranted pressure. It's like, why do I care that much about my siblings' well-being? Obviously, you'll care about them. You love them. You want to see them thrive. But why wouldn't it just be like any general person that you care for, any general sibling that you care for? And I promise you, again, generally speaking, I've had conversations with middle and baby children. They don't often, not all the time, but often feel the same way that eldest daughters do. So it's a bit more than just general sibling love, right? Or general care for your sibling. It goes beyond that. And this, what I just got done referencing, that's part of the major crux and reason why it goes beyond just general care for your siblings. The way to be that was modeled for you was caregiver, nurturer, protector, and also be good, be the best. You are the model, right? And everybody that comes from you, your parents had to practice their mistakes onto you. They had to learn by trial and error with you. And so because you're that model, you got a lot of the pressures that models get. When it's brand new, all you're going off of is speculations, which makes you stand up a little bit straighter and require somebody, the person or the thing that you're engaging with, to stand up a little bit straighter too, because you feel that pressure, and that pressure is just transferred down. So that's why it feels different, eldest daughter. You're not crazy, and you're not wrong for feeling that innate desire and need and longing to protect, to provide, to make sure everybody is good and thriving. But I know it's a lot of pressure. I feel you, sis. I feel you. I know it's so much pressure because you feel that innately, but you also fully recognize that you didn't ask for it either. But then it's one of those things that you just kind of got to suck up because you know it's not going nowhere. Because that's another one too. When I talk to eldest daughters in therapy often, I'm like, well, and I give them all the tools, which I'm going to get to in a second, about how to kind of circumvent this and make sure that you're prioritizing yourself and practicing good self-care and not overly obsessing with other people's problems while forsaking your own. Like when I make all of these suggestions, they're often like, yeah, Raven, but that's not an option. What's not an option for me is me forsaking these responsibilities. I hate them. It's exhausting sometimes, but I also could never let it go because it's so integral to the parts of my heart that I can't necessarily even explain, but it just is. Yeah, this is why it is. And I'm telling you, what KeKe Palmer said here is absolutely correct. Sometimes it is just that. And I know everybody won't get that. Everybody won't understand that. But I want you to look at me good, sis. Zoom in if you have to. I get your heart. Sometimes it just is what it is. And you can cry about it. You can be sad about it. It can exhaust you most days. And also I hear you saying that, yeah, but it just is what it is, because I'd rather feel this way than for my people, my babies, siblings, right? Or your mom and dad to be without or to be struggling. I hear that. And so I just want to validate that before we get to the next one. I just want to validate that and let you know that I'm not asking you to choose, because like she said here, sometimes it is just what it is. And you just got to go with what you've been given, because it is also such a blessing to be in this road too, which let's get to that in point two. Point two, I fully recognize that, and this is where I'm going to challenge you a bit, sis. I fully recognize that to be the eldest daughter is kind of what we talked about in point one. A lot of responsibilities, sometimes exhausting. Sometimes you feel like, why was I thrust into this? I wish I could just choose myself. All of those things. It's an exhausting role to play. And also though, you got to be able to be honest and say you kind of love it too. And let me explain what I mean. Being an eldest daughter comes with a certain modicum of respect. Generally speaking, of course, I'm going to keep giving that caveat because obviously it doesn't universally apply. Nevertheless, the way that it generally works in this particular birth order classification, if you will, eldest daughters, you take pride in being in that role. You take pride in kind of always having the answer, kind of always feeling like, oh no, they know where to get the solutions from. And that can sound self-serving and arrogant, and maybe sometimes it does borderline into it a little bit, but I'm gonna give you some context for it though. You take pride in it because these are the people that you love so deeply. You take pride in it because this is what you so long for. You have your own aspirations and desires because you're an ambitious girl, which we're going to get to that in a second too. Y'all are ambitious, and that's a good thing. But this is the thing that most pricks your heart. This is the thing that you're most ambitious about. You're ambitious about getting to the bag, getting money, getting successful, getting all of the necessary things in your life so that you can play this role of protector, provider, nurturer, giver, making sure everybody's thriving, giving everybody an opportunity and a platform to thrive, or a sounding board off of which they can thrive. So with that in mind, you like being the person with the answers. It's stressful. It's hard. You get exhausted by it. You get angry at it sometimes. But baby girl, don't act like you don't like it. You don't like the ramifications and the implications of it. I'll give you that. But there is a part of you that takes pride in this identity because it makes you the winner. And it makes you the head honcho. And to be fair, you like being the head honcho. It feels good to be a head honcho, and you feel like nobody can do that better. Yeah? That's okay. And everybody always tells you, you think you know everything. You think you always think you're right. And then guess what? A lot of times, I know you're thinking, I'll say it for you. You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. A lot of times you do feel like you're always right. You do feel right? Yeah. Because even though they say that, they keep coming back for the answers, don't they? Or if they mess up, and when I say they, meaning the siblings, right? And then also this manifests in other relationships too, because eldest daughters, this identity just doesn't turn off once you enter into other relationships. Nevertheless, you're typically the person or the point of reference for people. And that's okay. But let me tell you where it turns into error. When you allow it to produce self-righteousness. Yeah. Which is why in this KeKe Palmer interview, I was so appreciative of her acknowledging that her dad had to humble her a bit and make sure that she recognized that it's a lot more to taking care of a family than just being the provider. It's a lot more, and I'll go a step further. It's a lot more to being a good sister than just giving answers and helping them to navigate problems. It's a lot more than that. You're a sister. You're a sibling. You're a part of a unit, a family that should be. And if it's not, this is where you have to self-correct. That's based in love. Family means love and is synonymous with love. It should be. So you need to be able to cultivate love, cultivate understanding, cultivate empathy and care and genuine altruism. You don't know everything. I know it feels like you do. And I know at times you just want to formulate an answer so bad, or a solution to the problem so bad, that you'll forsake and sometimes pummel over everything in your route just so you can get to that solution. And you often look at everybody around you who don't have one, or who don't have something substantive to offer from your vantage point. You look at them sometimes as problems, right? And something to be managed or moved aside so that you can bulldoze with your answers, with your perspectives, and make it good or make it well. That's not the way to do this. And if you're going to continue to be an effective big sister, eldest daughter, you're going to have to really create the distinction between this identity that you've so tethered yourself to, or that has tethered itself to you, and feel pride in that and feel good about your capacity, because you do have the capacity to withstand and to be the leader and to be intuitive, and to drive conversations, drive narratives, drive the boat even to solution. That's a good thing. But you have to be careful not to let it morph into self-righteousness and constantly do self-evaluations about, wait, am I listening, or am I only listening to respond, to give a response and an answer and a solution that I think is right based off of my lived experience? Because that's not helpful. And actually, it's harmful. It's not just that it's not helpful, it's harmful, and it's dismissive. And it makes other people who have different lived experiences of yours than yours, i.e. the youngest and the middle child often, it makes them feel invalidated. Because you have to remember, this is key. You see the world through your world. You see the world through your lens. And your lens is that of an eldest daughter, somebody who has had a responsibility thrust onto them. And so as a result of that, you only see things through the lens of get the responsibilities done, take care of it, make sure all is well. I can't drop the ball. There is no net underneath me. If I drop the ball, or if the net busts, that's it. I'm falling. I'm failing. And that's how you go about things. That's how you maneuver through the world. But that's uniquely because of your position in the birth order. Contrastly, though, a middle and a baby child, they don't see the world through that lens. So no, they don't approach conflict in the same way that you do. That same forceful, straightforward, go after it no matter what vigor that you have within you. They don't have that. Not because they're flawed in any way. They're not errored, that they weren't made inaccurately. They have a different birth position than you do. So they didn't have to go out and seize the day. Their big sister was already done seizing the day by the time they woke up. Right? And so they have a different perspective. And that's a whole other conversation. Comment down below if you want me to do a whole breakdown of all of the roles. Nevertheless, stop looking at them. And I know you don't do it intentionally. I hear your heart, but I have to challenge you here. Stop looking at them as if they're errors, or as if they're mistakes. And maybe not, again, not that they themselves, their lives are errors or mistakes, but rather how they do their life, how they approach life. Yeah, it's different from yours because they see the world completely different, because they don't have the lived experiences and also lived responsibilities of an eldest daughter. Okay? Another thing from this clip that I gathered that I think it's important to point out is that you need, deserve, and require vulnerability as well. Let's let go of this moniker of you can do it all, you can handle it all, you can manage it all. Do you have the capacity to do high level thinking or high level juggling of problems and struggles and stresses? Perhaps you do. Yes. Because that pressure was placed onto you that we talked about in point 1, because you were placed under a unique amount of pressure from your parents. Yeah, you do have the capacity that maybe other children in the birth order don't have. But baby girl, hear me good. That does not mean that you are indestructible and that there is nothing that is too difficult for you to navigate through. That's not true. And I know that as I say this, you're like, yeah, Raven, I get that. Yeah, but you haven't convinced your heart and your mind and your behaviors of that. Your behaviors are still reflective of somebody that is indestructible, of somebody that doesn't necessarily need a leaning post, of someone that doesn't need someone to talk through things with. And that's not true. You have to be able to be vulnerable with someone. And I'm going to just stop you there because I hear your thoughts already. Well, I just feel like nobody has the capacity that I have, and nobody can handle the things that I go through. Nobody feels and understands the things that I go through because mine are so unique. Or maybe you feel like, yeah, but everybody already got their own problems that they're going through. There's no room for mine. Right? Does that hit a nerve? Guess what, babe? All of those are lies from the eldest daughter brain. All of those are misconceptions from that eldest daughter jumbled up mess that you have in your head. Those lies were formulated from you being in the position of having to take care, make it happen. Think about, again, if your point of reference is mom, and mom is sick and she's still taking care of the kids. She's not really thinking about her sickness. All she does is go straight to that baby. Or mom is sleepy, but she has to get up and to feed the kid or whatever, right? What you saw was mom completely forsaking herself oftentimes so that she can get up and do what's necessary for the group. So that's your point of reference. So you've adopted this perspective that, oh no, my problems are minuscule in comparison to. Your identity is steeped in protector and provider. You haven't gotten the opportunity. Oftentimes, eldest daughters didn't really get the opportunity, whether inadvertently or not, to practice vulnerability, to practice weakness, to practice softness, and to get perspective, because they were always in a position to have to give it and instruct and lead and protect, right? But guess what? Now that you're older, you get the opportunity to reshape your narrative and be in touch with yourself, right? Touch your heart. What does she need? What does she feel? What is she feeling? Outside of the stressors about everything and everyone around her, what is it that she actually needs and wants? And guess what? I'm really going to give you a kicker here. Your baby siblings, your younger siblings could offer you perspective on that. I'll give some personal story here. Prior to me being able to come to all these profound conclusions about birth order, I struggled with all of these variables myself with my younger sister and brother, actually. And particularly my younger sister. I was always in this instruct her mode, lead her down a good path, help her to get to where she needs to go so she can thrive and so she can be this ambitious, wonderful woman, right? And that's fine. That's fine on its face. It had some underlying problems of self-righteousness in there for sure, but we talked about that. But also, though, it completely forsook the fact that she has her own lived experiences that could be useful to me. This is a young woman, similar to how I am also a young woman. Yeah, we're 4 or 5 years apart, but we're still young people trying to navigate the same house, different traumas, but similar traumas because we grew up in the same house, and also Black women in a world. Like, we have a lot of shared things, but because I was so steeped and tethered in my perspective about my role and all the things that it required of me, I completely negated all the things that we could actually find alignment in and develop good relationship about, and also the ways that she can help me from her own lived experiences. That's a real life young woman with real experiences that aren't dismissed just because they aren't mine. They're valid. And at the very minimum, I can hear them and engage with them, even if they don't necessarily apply all the way, but I can engage with them because that's a young woman who grew up in the same home as me. And so she has some good things to say as well because they're hers. And she has inherent value just the same as I have inherent value. And so my third point, I guess, would be to take people's value out of what they contribute to the world, because that's how you see the world, because you've always had to, again, contribute, help, provide. Take it out of what they value or what they bring and just look at people for who they are and engage with them on the face of who they are and see and hold space for their value there. But guess what? In order for you to do that, in order for you to see value in other people, you have to first see it in yourself. And I know you do, but I want you to ask yourself, is the value that you place and that you see in yourself tethered solely to how you show up for people? How you perform for people? What problems you solve for people? That's a bigger thing. That's a large thing that eldest daughters struggle with too. How they perform, how they show up. That's what they predicate their value and their worth on, not intentionally. But that's often what registers in their heart. And so then it just manifests in their relationship. And then this is often what I hear from eldest daughters. Then their relationship, whether it be romantic or platonic or otherwise, many people in their lives complain to them about them feeling like they're judgmental of them, or that they dislike them, or that they're mean to them, or that they're too cross or forward. And sis, maybe sometimes they're wrong or being unfairly judgmental of you. But often, if you can be honest, you probably are. And it's not because you're some horrible, evil, judgmental person, but it's because you see the world through this lens. You had no choice but to show up for people. So now you just inadvertently move around with that sort of brute, aggressive posturing in your relationships. Show up. What's up? Come on. What's the results? Produce. People aren't your production machines, babe. People are your friends, your fam. That's your sister. That's your brother. That's your friend. That's your cousin. Not production machines. Take people off of the production wheel and engage. And in that engaging, let your heart be touched. I know it will feel uncomfortable and weird, but cry to your friends and family. Let them know what your needs are. Sometimes it's not even about them being able to provide an answer, but sometimes it's about touching that stony heart, being reminded that you bleed, you feel. And even if they can't give anything but a hug, right? You're not alone in it. And as you undergird them and build them up, let them hold you up. They're not going to break. And guess how I know they're not going to break? Because they had you as an example. And we know the last thing you're going to do is break, right? Not that you're indestructible, but I know how valuable not breaking is to you. And these are your motivators to keep from breaking, right? So let those things that you help to create and help to mold into these wonderful beings, let them feed you. Let them hold you up. And stop looking at them like they can't. You're not God. You need them just as much as they need you. Okay? Okay. So let's get to the conclusion, because this is way too long. Sis, good job. I'm clapping you up. I'm clapping you up. Kudos to you for making it happen to the extent that you have. It's so many more things I could say, but I'm going to stop it here, because in part 2, let me know if you want me to do a part 2, because this is kind of how the birth order dynamic shows up in the context of family dynamics, and then some ways that it shows up in other relationships too. However, there is also a second part to this that talks about how you show up in workspaces and that ambition that eldest daughters often have. And I totally am okay with doing a part 2 to this if you guys are interested. So let me know in the comments if that's something you want to hear. And I want you to be encouraged to be vulnerable. If you take nothing else from this video, be vulnerable. You're not indestructible. It's okay that you love your role as leader and as the person who takes the initiative and helps the family. But don't let that make you self-righteous. Okay? Okay. That was a whole lot, and I am done now. Again, let me know if you want a part 2. Let me know if you want me to. I've really been in my therapist bag a lot lately, and I am enjoying it. I shied away from it for a while because I was like, oh, this lane is so overly saturated. But you know what? I have valuable things to say as well, so I just want to add my voice to this space. And if you want me to keep adding my voice to this space, let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, and I think that's everything. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.